The chandelier above me creaked, and I knew this was the moment. 2 seconds. That was all I needed. I had killed 43 rulers before tonight, and every single one of them had died without knowing my name. Queen Alara of the Velnari would be the 44th. I was already counting down inside my head when I dropped from the dark. The throne room was full of light and music, and soft laughter from nobles who had no idea death was falling toward their queen. I moved through the shadows between the great glass lamps, my blade cold against my palm, coated in a toxin that worked faster than a scream. My employers wanted her gone before midnight. The whole alliance between 3 star systems depended on her staying alive, and that was exactly why she had to die. Chaos was profitable for the people who paid me. I had studied the palace for 6 weeks. I knew every guard rotation, every blind corner, every breath the Velnari honor guard took before they moved. What I did not study closely enough was the man standing near the throne in a plain gray uniform, arms folded, looking like he would rather be anywhere else. A human. My briefing called him decorative, a soft species kept around because the queen liked their stubborn loyalty, not a threat, not worth extra attention. That mistake nearly cost me everything, and it changed how I understood an entire species in less than a minute. I dropped from the ceiling truss without a sound, the air barely shifting around me. My blade was already moving toward the queen's neck, on a path that had never failed before. In that half-second, before contact, the human turned. Not from fear, not because he heard me. He turned like his body already expected something to fall out of the dark, like some old instinct in him had been waiting all night for exactly this. His arm came up under mine before my blade could finish its path. Bone met metal instead of skin. My perfect strike skidded away, wasted. And then, with my balance already thrown off, he laughed. It was not a nervous sound. It was not the shaking laugh of someone trying to convince himself he was safe. It was warm, surprised, almost joyful, like I had just told him the best news he had heard all year. I had fought synthetic guards that attacked without hesitation. I had fought warriors from 3 different worlds who screamed before they struck. I knew what fear sounded like, and I knew what anger sounded like. I did not know what this was. For one dangerous moment, I stopped thinking like a killer and started thinking like someone trying to solve a puzzle. That pause cost me. He caught my second strike on his forearm. I heard something crack in his arm, and instead of crying out, he laughed harder, like pain itself was funny to him. "Oh, thank goodness," he said, breathless and grinning. "Finally something interesting happens around here." I want to explain why that sentence unsettled me more than any weapon ever had. My entire training was built on reading fear. Every living thing I had ever faced calculated the value of its own life in the middle of a fight. Even the bravest warriors I had killed still respected death enough to be careful around it. This man was smiling at it like an old friend arriving late to a party. Old files from my mission briefing surfaced in my mind, pieces I had ignored as unimportant. Humans, it was said, sometimes felt joy during danger instead of fear. Their history was full of strange choices, climbing tall cliffs for fun, running toward storms instead of away from them, laughing in situations that should have made anyone else freeze. I had read those lines and moved on, thinking they were just cultural oddities, nothing that mattered to my work. I was wrong. They mattered more than anything else in that room. The queen still had not moved from her chair, watching everything with the calm control of her people, refusing to give away fear even now. Her guards were reaching for their weapons, but they were too far, too slow, still trapped in that half-second of shock I had planned for. Only the human had already broken through his own shock and gone straight into motion, like danger simply switched something on inside him, rather than shutting it down. I tried to recover. I shifted my weight, aimed for a faster strike, one that should have ended things immediately. He blocked it again, not with perfect skill, but with something rawer, an eagerness that refused to slow down, no matter how many times he was struck. Every hit he took seemed to feed him more energy instead of draining it. I realized, far too late, that I was not fighting a soldier following orders. I was fighting someone who wanted to be here, who had been hoping for exactly this kind of night. He grabbed my wrist and twisted, using my own forward motion against me. I hit the floor harder than I expected, the marble sending a sharp shock up through my shoulder. The sound echoed through the entire throne room, sharp enough that the music finally stopped, and the nobles turned to stare. My blade slid away across the stone, harmless now, the toxin on its edge doing nothing but stain the floor. He pinned me down with his knee, still catching his breath, his cracked arm held at an angle that should have made him wince, yet his face still carried that same bright, almost delighted expression. I lay there, disarmed, defeated by someone my own employers had told me was not worth watching closely. For the first time in 11 years of this work, I asked a question I had never needed to ask before. Why were you laughing? He looked down at me, and for a moment, his grin softened into something more thoughtful, more honest. 4 months, he said. 4 months of standing next to that throne, smiling at parties, shaking hands, listening to speeches about trade agreements. I asked for this job because they told me it would be dangerous. Then nothing happened. Every single night, nothing happened. He shrugged, wincing slightly now that the moment had passed and his arm had started to ache. You're the first exciting thing that's happened to me all year. I stared at him, trying to process an answer that should not have made sense, and yet somehow explained everything. He had not fought because he hated me. He had not fought out of fear for his own life. He had simply been waiting, hoping, for something worth his full attention, and I had walked straight into that hope wearing the shape of a threat. Guards surrounded us now, weapons raised, voices sharp with alarm finally catching up to what had already happened. The queen rose from her throne, calm as ever, studying me with eyes that held more curiosity than anger. She had watched her whole survival balance on a man everyone in the room, including me, had underestimated. As they pulled me up and secured my arms, I looked back at him one last time. He was already talking to another guard, laughing again, this time about the bruise forming on his arm, joking that it would make a good story. No pride, no anger, just simple enjoyment, as if surviving an assassination attempt was just another interesting evening. That was when I finally understood the real danger of his kind. It was never about strength. Humans were not faster than the warriors I had faced before, and they were not stronger either. Their danger came from somewhere stranger, somewhere no briefing could ever fully explain. They did not calculate the value of their life the way every other species did. Somewhere in their long history, joy and danger had become tangled together instead of separated, and that tangle made them impossible to predict. Every enemy I studied before tonight reacted to fear in patterns I could read and use. Humans broke that pattern completely. A frightened human might freeze exactly like anyone else, but a bored one, an excited one, a curious one, could turn danger into entertainment in the space of a single breath. There was no algorithm, no training, no careful study that could prepare you for someone who genuinely wanted the fight to happen. As they led me out of the throne room, past nobles still murmuring in shock, I thought about all the years I had spent studying fear as a weapon. I understood now that fear was never the most dangerous emotion in that room. Joy was. A joy so simple, so human, that it slipped past thousands of years of my training in less than 2 minutes. The queen would live. My employers would lose their war before it even started. And somewhere behind me, a man in a plain gray uniform was still laughing quietly, rubbing his aching arm, already looking forward to whatever interesting thing might happen next. That night taught me something no briefing ever could. You cannot plan around a species that welcomes danger with a smile. You cannot predict someone who finds excitement in the very moment meant to end them. I had faced soldiers, warriors, and machines built purely for combat, yet none of them ever unsettled me the way one bored, cheerful human guard did, simply by laughing when he should have been afraid. If there was one lesson I carried out of that palace, chained and defeated for the first time in my career, it was this: never underestimate a species that has learned to find joy inside fear itself. That joy, more than any weapon, more than any army, was the most unpredictable force I had ever encountered, and I suspect it always will be.